This is Kat Sturtz from rockingyourpath.com with another episode of Fast Action Fridays. Today, my special guest is Jen Liddy. Jen and I met in a mastermind group that we both adore that's run by Jennifer Lehner, the Front Row VIP group. And I've been a guest for her group, and I am so delighted to welcome you to Fast Action Fridays. Now, I want to tell the viewers, I want to tell the viewers and listeners that today we're going to be talking about content creation and making sure that you know how to get your message across, because that's one of Jen's specialties. Jen, thank you for being here. And can you tell everybody a little bit about yourself?
Yes. Thank you again for having me, Kat. I am a business development coach, but the reason that I became a business development coach was that I made this huge leap from being an English teacher. And I worked at a high school for a lot of years, and then I worked at a college, and I got burned out on teaching for lots of reasons, mostly for grading reasons and parents. Cell phones had kind of just been introduced, and I was really burned out. So I made this leap to becoming an entrepreneur. And I became one of 3 owners of a brick and mortar fitness studio. I had 0 experience running a business, but I was really good at organization, systems, communication. And so between myself and the other 2 partners, we all kind of each had these specialties that covered the things you need to run a business. But I always say that I ran that business for 3.5 to 4 years, and by the time I was done, I was so burned out because I had constantly just felt like running a business is like cooking a meal, using a recipe, but I always felt like I was missing an ingredient in the recipe. And so I just always felt like I was scrambling and learning and never quite doing it right. So when I left the business, I was pretty burned out. I used to say, I'm dead inside. I was really like crispy and just overdone. And so I really wanted to help other solopreneurs run their businesses so that they could have a life, but also stop feeling like there's just one size fits all or one recipe and you need to do it in exactly the right way. So that's why I became a business development coach, and I specialize helping women, solopreneurs, put systems in place so that they can, make money and have a life.
I love that. So many of us who are solopreneurs, who love working from home, have been burned out doing other things. We're smart. We know how to learn to do something new, but like you said, often we're missing some little ingredient that makes our lives easier, that helps prevent that burnout. So I know what you're going to share is really going to resonate with my followers, as well as your group. So we are all about how to take fast action. Not complete action, but how to get off the page. So where do we start?
So good. Let's talk about creating content, first of all, right? Because I know that you love marketing, Kat, but I also know that many, many, many solopreneurs don't love marketing. And I was afraid of marketing back when I started my first business. I was always thinking marketing is for other people to do. I'm too dumb to do it. I'm not creative enough to do it. And so the first thing I want your audience to know is that if I can learn how to do marketing, anybody can learn how to do marketing. And one of the really important aspects of marketing, as you know, is really putting valuable content out there that speaks the language of your ideal client. So what happens to a lot of solopreneurs is they try to do all the things, be on all the platforms, teach everything that they possibly know to their audience. And so the very first fast action that I really want your audience to start doing is, which are the 3 platforms that are the best for you? So if you really hate writing, why are you blogging? Maybe you should be doing videos instead, right? And if you hate speaking to the void and every time you need to get on your podcast, you resent it, maybe doing a podcast isn't the right kind of marketing for you. So the very first question is, where are 3 platforms, and no more than 3 platforms unless you have a team working behind you. And many people, when they get started, do not have a team. So are your people on Facebook? Are your people on TikTok? Do your people love YouTube? What is it that your people love? And also, what do you love to do? So the very first fast action is just decide that.
Couldn't agree with you more, especially the phrase you said, what do you love? Because you can't follow all of the gurus out there and all of the advice out there. And those who know me, and like you said, I do like marketing, but I'm the Purgatory Relief Coach for people who think marketing is hell. You don't have to love it,
Yes.
but you do have to come to terms with it if you want to grow a business. And like you just mentioned, if you don't love some aspect of marketing, don't try to do it. If you come to terms with it later on and want to add it, you can add it later, right?
Right. So then the next step, once you've decided what your platforms are and how you're going to get stuff out there, what I find is that people then get really stuck in, what am I supposed to say on these platforms? What should my content be? Now, I know that content involves a lot of stuff. It involves what's on your website and what's in the program that you're selling. But today, for our purposes, we're talking about marketing content that you might use in social media or blogging or podcasts or whatever it is, right? So I have a really easy system that when my clients learn this system, their mind is blown and their life becomes so much easier. So rather than trying to fire hose your audience with everything that you know in every email and every post, I use kind of a thematic approach. And this is how I do it. I think about like 6 or 7 things that my audience needs to learn or do or overcome before they can have the business that they are really dreaming of. And so I make a list, like, what are the things my people need to learn? Well, it could be anything from like, they need to learn how to write good headlines. It could be that they need to put boundaries in place, right? Like it could be that they need to see themselves as a leader or trust themselves and trust their voices. Like I could come up with 6 things that my people need. So could you, so could anybody, because we know our audiences so well. We know what they need to learn. Our mistake is we try to teach them everything at one time. And I call that fire hosing. So come up with 6 things. Of those 6 things, look to 2 or 3 of those 6 things that you just know inside and out, that you could tell stories about, that you could talk, even share success stories from your clients. Just 2 or 3 of those 6 topics. What are the ones that like resonate with you the most, that you're most excited to talk about? From those 3, then whittle it down to 1. The one that you're most excited about, the one that you have the best stories for, etc. That one topic can be your whole month's theme. So for example, say that I was talking about calls to action. My clients need to learn that calls to action are not gross or greasy or yucky, and that we need to put calls to action in. So I could spend a whole month talking about calls to action. And at this point, somebody in your audience is going to stop and say, how boring would it be for your audience to hear about the same thing for a month? But it's not boring, because remember, we all have like an infinitesimal attention span at this point. We can only take a little bit, which is why I use this analogy of, rather than fire hosing, we want to give our audience fish food. We want to give them a little taste of what they need so that they can come up to the top, take it, and then go back to their little castle in the sand and digest it. So if I were talking about calls to action for the month, I could spend like one email that could be like what calls to action are, educating them about it, defining it, etc. I could break some myths about calls to action, that you're actually not doing your clients a favor if you don't use them. I could then, in the 3rd week, I could talk about success stories. A client of mine who never used calls to action before and what happened to her business when she started to. Like, I could really talk for 3 or 4 weeks about this one topic by really just breaking it down and giving it as fish food so that they can learn stories and start to practice and ask questions. And then you've got a whole month of content based on one theme.
I like that. Do you find when you're working with clients that the ones who are stuck, and you mentioned part of that mindset, they think they need to give so much information, they end up overwhelming people with the fire hosing, telling them everything they need to know when they go to put it in paper. Yes. But those same people, if they're in a meeting or a networking group, chunk down something to one topic, one aspect of that theme. And I know I find that if I remember when I'm writing something, I'm writing it to one person as if I'm speaking it to one person. It helps remind me not to fire hose them with everything. Do you find that true too?
Yeah. Yes, 100%. The other thing along those same lines is they're worried about repeating themselves. So if I break this down and I explain it, and then I explain it again because it comes up later, am I going to bore my audience? And I'll ask them, like, how many times have you heard me say XYZ to you? You've heard me say it 1,000 times, but we always still need to be reminded. So the chunking it down is important. And it's because we're trying to protect our audience from making the same mistakes we made, right? Like, don't do this. And I'm going to tell you all the reasons why you don't want to do this. I'm going to tell them all to you right now. And people can't hear it. They can't digest it. It kind of reminds me as a parent, I look at my son and I want to tell him all the mistakes that I made. And I want to give him all the lessons up front so that he can avoid them. Yet I can't do that. I can only parse them out as they come available and as they are appropriate, right? So I find that creating content is very similar. We need to parse it out in a way that can land on our clients' ears, and then they can actually hear it. And more, I always say more is not better.
Yeah.
Better is better. And so what does your audience need?
Hidden in that message where you said, well, I already told them about that. Why would I tell them about that again? Hidden in that is what I call the McDonald's paradox. It's on TV. Everybody knows McDonald's exists. Why do they bother spending all that money to tell us on TV and in billboards and in ads all over that they exist? It's to be in front of people's minds when they're ready to buy.
Yeah. I used to wonder that too, but it's just about bringing it front and center again and again and again.
And the corollary to that one, the same people often say, well, marketing doesn't work. It's like, okay.
Have you been to McDonald's in your lifetime? Right.
Exactly. All right. I know you've got another great tip for us. What is it?
Well, this is a bit about once you understand that you need content, and then you understand my second tip, which is, how to create the content. The third thing that comes up for people is a resistance to putting the content out there. It's very, very hard for people, especially women solopreneurs, especially if they've got any imposter syndrome or any junk that they're carrying around. It's very hard to be seen. Visibility is a scary thing. And I just want to acknowledge that. Putting your stuff out there is terrifying. Somebody might, make a snarky comment about it or completely disagree with you or go on a rage comment in your feed. And what I want people to understand is you can handle that. And you don't have to worry that that's the way it's going to be. That takes a lot of work. And I like to tell this story because I think it will inspire people to understand that you need to do this even though you are afraid. That's what courage is. So content creation really takes courage. And one of my favorite story is, for years, I just turned 50 this year. And for years, probably since I turned 40, I've been struggling with hormone issues. Just nothing has worked. And I remember going to the doctor when I turned 40, and he shrugged at me and he said, well, you're in your 40s now. That's it for you, Jen. And so I spent my entire decade looking for help with these hormones. It turns out last year, a client of mine happens to mention this woman that she goes to who gives her bioidentical hormone replacement therapy, these little pellets that go in her butt cheek. And it changed her life. And I was like, who is this person? And tell me more about it. And how did it change? My client was able to start sleeping through the night and had more energy, and her libido came back from nowhere. It was really interesting. So the woman who does this work is a weight loss doctor. And I actually drive past her office several times a day, but it says weight loss. She's a weight loss, medical weight loss is the name of her business. So I know that never resonated with me. So when I finally found her and I got an appointment and I went in and I got these hormone replacement pellets, It was a total game changer. And I asked her, why aren't you putting this message out there? I could have found you 10 years ago. I could have spent my 40s in a completely different way. And she's like, well, we really don't have time to market and we really don't need to because people refer to us. And I thought, this is why women need to know that their message is so important, even if you're nervous or scared or overwhelmed in putting it out there, because there is somebody out there who needs the solution to the problem that you solve. And don't fool yourself and say, no, people already know. And if they needed me, they would find me. No, people need you to show up and generate trust and educate them and make a connection so that they can come get the solution that you have ready for them. So that is my third tip, is that it takes courage to do this. And if you're not doing it, you're actually doing not only a disservice to you. Like, I understand that maybe that's not enough motivation for people. Like, oh, it's just, I'm just holding myself back. But you're keeping these people who need your solution from changing their life.
Exactly. So many entrepreneurs and solopreneurs, in particular women, say they want to help someone else make a change in their life. And you're doing them a disservice by not sharing the gift that you have. Going back to something you said just a little bit, and it's related to that fear that someone may not like this. No one product or service or vendor or business is right for everyone out there.
Right.
And that's just part of it. And I know for me to come to terms with that, it took understanding what I didn't like out there, whose products I was never going to be a customer of. And I was comfortable with that. And I was comfortable with them understanding that, nope, I'm not going to be your customer. When you understand that from your own point of view, it's easier to deal emotionally with someone else not wanting what you have to offer. Now, I
say I'm not. Oh, sorry.
Oh, I was just going to remind people that you've got a great free resource. And for anybody watching or listening to this, check the blog post or the description down in YouTube for a link to where you can go get that. So what were you going to say?
I was going to say that, oh my goodness, you have to speak to your ideal client with the words that they need to hear, and understand that you're not for everybody. And I was just piggybacking on what you were saying. If you can let go of the fear, what I think keeps people from putting their content out is like, what if somebody doesn't like it? I guarantee you there are going to be people who don't like it. If you go in knowing that there are going to be people who will judge you and they won't like your content, and you can still grow your business because there's going to be tons of people who will like it and do need you. That's where the courage piece comes in. You don't have to be for everybody. And I'd really like to say here that there are many guru coaches out there who making 7-8 figures a year. And I can't stand them. I don't follow them. I would never buy from them. And yet they're doing just fine. They don't give a crap that Jen Liddy doesn't like them, right? But they're doing their own thing. So you don't have to be for everyone. And you also don't need to have 1 million followers or even like tens of thousands of followers. If you have 100 loyal, rabid fans who love you, you can have a successful business. So the content that you create, I want you to think about the love that you have for those 100 people you're trying to attract to your business and how you can serve them. And if you always come from a place of, how will this serve my audience? You're going to be in integrity. And if you're in integrity and there's a hater out there, that's on them. It's not on you.
Right. It's all about the quantity of your target market and followers and who's on your list, not the quantity. It's not the number of likes that your Facebook page has, or the number of friends you have on Facebook, or the followers on Instagram, or the number of people on your list. If you have a list of 1,000 and 900 of them will never be customers of yours, they're dead weight. You're paying for services with that list that you could be saving money on. So trimming down,
right,
keeping that message sharp to that target market is so important. I'm so glad you brought that up. Any final words for us?
Just one quick thing. I had a friend last year at this time. We were at a retreat together, and she asked me how my business was, and I said that I was on a waiting list, that I couldn't take new clients for another couple of months. And she kind of rolled her eyes in frustration. And she said, how many people are on your list? Because she's imagining that for me to have a filled out business, that I must have thousands of people on my list. And I said, I have 315 people on my list. And it was kind of mind blowing to her that you could have a full business and not have a 10 or 15,000 person list. And my business is a micro business. I only, I work privately with people. I have groups. I don't have a huge scaled model, but my business works for me. And so just the last thing I want to say is, don't think that you need to have thousands and thousands of people before you get started. Just get started. Take the fast action that Kat is doing this, interview for. Take the fast action, because you don't need thousands and thousands.
Oh, I'm glad you mentioned that, because I'm in that camp too. I've never had those thousands of people on my list, but I've always done well. And my private client, I limit the number of one-on-one clients I work with at any one time, because I have other obligations in my life that I choose to take responsibility for. Now, that doesn't mean that I wouldn't like more, but I'm not, my mind is not focused on 6-7 figures and 10,000 followers. My mind and my business sense is on sustainability and not burning out where I am right now. I've seen some people do really, really well, and they've just embraced some of the big programs out there. And what it came down to is they created a job for themselves that had all of the trappings of exactly what they left in the corporate world. And I don't want that. I don't want that for me. Yep. And as you pointed out, you don't have to do that, but you can still have a viable business that brings in money regularly to your business, but you got to work at it. And like you said, you've got to create content that resonates with your target audience.
Yes.
This is the message that solopreneurs who are just starting out, or who are struggling or stuck or stumped about what's not working and why they're not getting ahead, need to hear. And the last point, because you were a teacher and I was a substitute teacher, I would have been a renegade in a regular school environment. But I loved being a substitute teacher for many years. Everybody learns differently, and we often need to hear the same message from someone else to either get it and finally hear it, or finally trust that the message is for us. And I think that's what we've provided today. You with wonderful tips that I think listeners will really take to heart. And so many of my other Fast Action Friday guests, there's an underlying message that you can do this, and you can do it your way. So thank you again for being here, Jen. I want to remind everybody.
Pleasure. Thanks for hosting me.
I want to remind everybody to make sure you check the description or below this video in the blog post for the link to go grab Jen's. And I think it's the customized content planner, 3 simple steps to unlock the content and messaging hiding in your brain. Yeah, it doesn't do anybody any good stuck up here.
Right.
There's enough stuff stuck up there.
That's right. Let's get it out into the world.
Exactly. All right. Well, this is Kat Sturtz closing another episode of Fast Action Fridays. Join me next week when I will have another great guest. And until then, remember to keep rocking your unique path to success. Bye-bye.